Welcome to the Life and Leadership Podcast, where we discuss business, leadership, and friendship. I'm Zach Gable.
And I'm Jared Toach. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey everyone, Zach Gable here. Thanks for tuning into our podcast. This podcast is a recording of part of our presentation from the 2025 Connecticut Association for the Education of Young Children Conference that took place back in September of this year. If you're listening on a platform that does not allow video, you'll hear some short pauses in the audio that signifies when we remove some of the recording of our live audience. If you would like for us to come speak at your leadership event, please send us an email to info@landlpodcast.com. The session was a little over 1.5 hours, and we reduced it down to about 45 minutes for the podcast form. Thanks again for tuning into our podcast, and we hope you have a great day.
All right, so welcome to our session. We're excited that you are with us today and joining us today. My name's Jared Toach.
I'm Zach Gable.
And we are excited to present about cultivating a dynamic culture and climate. And both of us, this is something that we are both passionate about in general, our climate and cultures of workplaces. We know that they're important. And I hope that by the end of this session, everybody's going to come out with some ideas, some thoughts, some hopefully something that will provoke your thinking, something maybe to take back to your team, your workplace. So thank you for joining us today.
And just so everyone is aware, we do have a podcast, and so we are recording.
But not you.
We're not recording you. So, and then here in a minute, we will ask for your introductions from you all as well, and we'll cut all that out of the video. So anyway, just so you know. Okay, so first off, who are we? My name is Zach Gable. I'm husband, just celebrated 15 years with my beautiful wife, and have a 10-year-old and 6-year-old boys. We own a trash business. You know, that's why we're here at a early childhood education
conference.
Makes perfect sense, right? We own a business. We have 37 on our team, and so anyway, we like to travel. And Jared and I have been friends for 20 years, right around 20 years, and so he's the reason we started the podcast. But the podcast that we do is mostly about leadership in business and in the school room, but we also do some about friendship as well. So
like I said, my name is Jared Toach, and my whole career has been spent in early childhood education. I'm very passionate about the field. So I was a primary school teacher to start off with, and then I had started when I was in college. I was in preschool. I taught preschool, and then when I graduated college, I was a kindergarten teacher and Title I teacher. Loved those years. Then I went back to preschool and spent many years doing that, and then I became an early childhood coach and then a director for our local school district, which is in southern Indiana, by the way. So we're not from Connecticut or the East Coast. And then after that, I went to a smaller center, went from 121 staff down to 50 staff, which was much more manageable. So I went from 121 staff members to and 600 children to about 50 staff and 200 children. So it was a really nice transition. I did that for several years, and now I work for, as some call it at this part of the country, NIAC, or NAEYC, whichever your preference is, it's fine. So currently I work for NAEYC as the reliability specialist for accreditation. So I'm on the accreditation team and work in the reliability. So that's my day job. This is a picture of my beautiful niece, who I absolutely adore. And these two boys I do call my nephews. We love spending time together. But like Zach said, we've been friends for many years, and several years ago, both of us having been involved in leadership, but at different levels. So I was with our public school district, and then I was with a nonprofit organization in early childhood education. And Zach, he's in the business side of things. So he runs a very large company and business in our area. But we are both passionate about helping people grow as leaders. It's just one of our passions that we do. We do our podcast and we don't do it for money. We have actually spent way more money than we've not made a dime on it. But we do it just because we love talking about leadership. We love if we can be a help or support to any organization, then that is our goal. Then we have succeeded in our roles. So down here, it talks a little bit about our mission. Our goal is to help individuals grow in leadership by providing strategies for strengthening themselves, their teams, and their relationships. So at the end of this day, if you can walk out of here and you can come away with a few tips, a few ideas, taking back, and your team benefits, ultimately, from my perspective, when your leadership team or your teachers or your educators are thriving, then who else is thriving in the school? The children, right? The kids they are thriving. So when you have a dynamic culture and climate in your school, in your organization, then ultimately your children and your families that are at your school or program will be thriving. I can talk, so Zach is going to have to.
So now you're getting ready to see the behind the scenes of our friendship in our podcast. You keep walking out of the camera. You need to get it over here. Okay, stay in the view of the camera.
So on the podcast, I get away from the microphone and I scoot away.
It's
from
an editing nightmare. It's horrible. If he starts coming over by you, just throw something at him, get him back over here. So anyway, now that you know about us, we would like to open up, and you don't have to, but we'd love to hear kind of who you are, where you're from, and
what your role is.
What your role is. And
yeah.
So who wants to start? Okay.
Awesome. Sounds like we have a wide variety, and I love it. But you all have important roles and important pieces. So before we get into this, I first have to tell you thank you for your work. Yeah. That is one of my favorite parts in my other job. With accreditation, when I go around, it's my favorite part of the visit to say thank you. And that is, and I told Alyssa Munala-Pimbe, who is our the main director for accreditation, I told her, I said, just create this job for me where I can just go around and tell programs thank you for the work that they do every day, because it's not easy. And as a former director, coach, and educator, I get it. And having gone through accreditation, I also get it. So that's aside from this, but thank you all for the work that you do. Okay.
Yeah. Jared's going to start passing some worksheets out here, but we've got to go. Does everybody have pens? Anybody need a pen? If you don't, I'm sorry. We can't help you. No. But this here is our QR code for our link tree for our podcast. If you'd like to check us out, we'd love to. As Jared said, we don't make any money on this. We're very passionate about leadership. We're very passionate about education. And so any way we can help people grow and organizations grow.
Alrighty, so what we passed out, we're going to use this as we go along today. And we are hoping that this is the first of many resources that we're able to offer free to organizations, just that are trying to begin to curate and cultivate dynamic cultures or just dynamic programs in general, just as a way to be helpful. So hopefully this is not available currently on our link tree, but we're going to try to get it up there. So if you do find this useful and you want to go back and work with your leadership team and kind of model or mock something like this, we hope that you can do that after today.
Okay, so starting out, what is climate and what is culture and why are they so important? So a few statistics here. The first one, the average adult working in the United States will spend 90,000 hours, roughly a third of their life, at their job. And
I say for early childhood educators, it's more than that.
Yes, yes.
I really feel like it is more than this, but it is still a lot.
I'd say that's an average. So that's, everybody works with, well, never mind. We all know someone that goes home early, so there's got to be an average in there somewhere. So for everyone that goes home early, there's one that stays late. So anyway, that's a lot. A third of your lifetime being spent in a single place with people. And I know, some of us are probably people persons, and some of us may not be people persons. If you're not a people person, you're probably in the wrong field. But anyway, that's a lot of your time. So if you're going to spend that much time, a third of your life in a workplace or in a school setting, that's the reason why climate and culture is so important. It affects every aspect of your life. The next one, when employees feel engaged at their organization, they are 4 times more likely to recommend their workplace. I actually love what you said. I think you said most of your staff members, you've changed their diapers, which speaks to how not only you treat the families and the ones that are in your organization, but it speaks to from the very beginning to when they're working for you or working with you. That speaks very highly of you. And so that doesn't happen with a toxic work environment. That happens with a dynamic work environment. So the last one, a Glassdoor survey found that 77% would consider a company's culture before seeking a job there. Another 56% said a good workplace culture was more important than salary. So what are we saying here? The reason why this is so important is because, and again, as Jerry explained, I'm from the business world, so I look at things on a business side. You all look at things on the educational side, in the education field. But from a business point of view, my goal is to build the best team and have the best work environment so that people want to come work for us. People want to join our team. And we have that. We have more applicants than we know what to do with most of the time, unless we're really looking for somebody. Isn't that the way it works? But we've been able to create an incredible work atmosphere where they have fun, they trust us, they know that it's a safe place to be, and so it allows for, again, at the middle one here, it says that they recommend their workplace. And so if you are needing more educators and you're needing more staff, the best place to get that is to create a dynamic culture, a dynamic atmosphere in the workplace.
How many in this, we'll just like test this theory out and see how many looked at or considered the culture, if you don't personally own the facility or the business, looked at the culture or the climate of the workplace that you are now working at before you accepted a job?
A couple?
A couple?
Yeah.
And sometimes it comes from a financial space, right? Mm-hmm. Especially in our field, we know that the pay is, it's all over the place. And sometimes you have to financially like choose the space, right?
And I'd say that most people, whether they realize it or not, we all may not specifically say, I'm testing the climate of this place, the culture of it. But when you're in interviews, you're testing the climate, you're testing culture. If the person conducting the interview or people conducting the interview are rude and nasty, do you go to a second interview? I don't want to work for people like that or with people like that. So whether you realize it or not, you're kind of putting your finger on the pulse of the organization. Because if the leadership, the ones that are in charge, don't know how to conduct themselves in a respectful manner, in a positive manner, then it always flows down.
Right. So for today's discussion, we are looking at climate is kind of the mood of the school or the mood of the organization. So like what is the feel like? And climate can change, right? Climate can fluctuate in a place depending on what happens. If you have a tragedy happen within an organization, you have something that impacts, right? That's the climate. When we talk about the culture, we're talking about the embedded practices, the ethics of the place, what we bump everything up against basically in our organization. So like it's the undercurrent of the entire organization, that culture piece that kind of ties everything together. The climate is the shifting, right? And can the climate impact the culture? 100%. Because if the climate stays at a negative space for long enough, then it begins to shift the currents of the culture in the environment. Same thing is true with the culture. If the culture is negative, right, it can impact the actual climate of the facility. If it is positive, if it's a positive, even in the midst of chaos, right? Because every day, if you work with children and families, brings you something really interesting, right? A lot of joy, but also something interesting. But if the basic culture tends to go downwards, then that obviously is going to impact the climate. But I think we needed to set the stage for like what we're talking about when we say culture and climate.
So here's an example of the difference between climate and culture. Jared knows about this. I've been dealing with this since we've started traveling, but I received a phone call yesterday about a newer driver. We hired him a couple weeks ago, and my leadership team was texting me and kind of filling me in about some concerns, major concerns that they had. We already had concerns before I left, and we were dealing with them as we could. But then there was some concerns that really kind of elevated everything. And so they ended up terminating the driver because the climate was being affected so drastically in our organization. And so we had, what happens is, I'm sure you all, if you've conducted interviews, you have someone that interviews fantastic. I mean, you feel like you just caught the best fish that's in the sea. And this gentleman had years and years of experience in our industry, and just knew how to be in an interview. And so we, a couple interviews, and he had just moved, so he was looking to start work right away. So we didn't spend a whole lot of time on many interviews and things, and which we learned from. And so we hired him, and everything felt like it was a good fit. And then all of a sudden things started to shift, and it's like, something's not right here. And you could feel it in the workplace. You could feel it with the other drivers, with the ones that he was working with, and the climate was kind of wavering. Our culture is the same. We have a culture of respect. We have a culture of integrity. We do what's right. The culture is the same, but the climate, because of this person that shouldn't have been there, the climate is wavering. And so, and then I just, at 3:00, 40 minutes ago, I got a text that he was caught doing something illegal and didn't report it on Monday. So glad he's gone. And now our climate can level back out. And so, but that's the difference between, the culture wasn't affected because of our core values. We took care of the issue, and so it leveled the climate back out. So it's important to have the culture, and then to, as we're getting ready to explain here, to use your core values and the culture and the foundation of who you are to correct the climates.
So here's what we're going to be talking about today: core values, psychological safety, recognition, and communication. So we feel that these are 4 key components of creating a dynamic culture, climate and culture in an organization. But in order to do this, we have to do it with intention. So these things don't just magically happen overnight, and we all know this. Anything that's done well, right, you have to make a full effort. If I want to lose the extra 20 pounds, because I realized today that I couldn't button my my suit coat, I was like, well, I'm sucking it in today. When I realized that, it's going to take intention on my part, right? So cultivating a dynamic climate and culture, it takes intention and intentionality. I love this quote by John C. Maxwell, one of our favorite. High Road Leadership is his latest book. I recommend this book to any leader in any type of organization, whatever.
Somebody's heard of it or read it already.
High Road Leadership.
It's incredible.
And John C. Maxwell. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But he says the more intentional you are about your leadership growth, the greater your potential for becoming the leader you're capable of being. So that intentionality, we invest in ourselves in order to become an even more greater leader. And once again, that impacts the place where you work. So we're going to talk about core values, psychological safety, recognition, and communication. We got to watch our time because I can talk. So core values. So if you take a look at the top, on the very first one on your sheet, we're going to talk about this. So it says core values, and it just gives you some things to think about. But I love this quote here. Effective core values possess 2 attributes: First, they inspire people. They make every employee in the company proud of where they work. Second, effective core values provide guidance on how to make tough decisions. And that's by Professor Robert Simmons out of Harvard. I apologize, sorry. And I think that is so important. So your core values, this is the way I look at core values. The core values of an organization should be the buffer zone, the bumpers. So like if you think about a child playing, or actually me playing bowling, I need the bumpers, right? I need the bumpers to guide me down the lane. The core values, everything in your organization should bump up against those core values, period. End of the day. Zach's story really pushed my brain in thinking about that this week, because core values come from the top. They come from us as leaders, who we are as leaders. So down here at the bottom, I put articulated, embraced, and lived. So core values should be articulated, they should be embraced, and they should be lived. If Zach had not fired the individual this week, can you tell me your core values real quick?
Respect, integrity, heart to serve, unity, and safety.
Okay, so one of the core values I would say, well, there's two that were violated this week. Safety was one because of the issue, but then unity. So just having overheard, because I overheard the phone call this week of what occurred, but basically a threat to another employee within the facility. That has to do with unity within an organization. But if Zach had said, Melanie, who's his executive assistant, said, Melanie, I think he was just joking, or let's just talk about this. Now, there have been other things leading up to this point, right, that made that final. Zach sent a message because they bumped it up against their core values of unity, of integrity, of safety.
Respect.
Of respect.
Yeah.
Okay, threatening somebody, not respectful. It's not creating. So by dealing with it at that moment in time, while that puts him and his company business in a bad space for a driver, because they're out of driver, so then they've got things that have to be picked up, but they bump that up against the core value. Sorry, I got sidetracked again. So on your sheet, these are just some things to think about, but if you look at core values, what are your current core values? So where it says, what are you doing now? Where it says, what are you doing? What are your core values? How do you know? How do we know? Do our core values live in a handbook? Are they posted on the walls? Do we discuss our core values? Do we review our core values? So just take a minute and just think about what are we doing in regards to our core values currently. And if you want to, jot them down on the piece of paper that we provided, and then we'll share out if you would like to. And the next box talks about what can you do next. So if you do not have core values in place at your organization, I would say that that's like a next step, right? It's determining what those core values are. If you have them and they're in a handbook, but we don't ever talk about them or read them or review them or look at them, then that could possibly be a next step.
And here's the thing that's important about this. I think everyone here is a leader in a pretty high position in your organization. And what Jared was getting at earlier was that if in the situation with this driver, and we won't spend all day talking about this driver, but in this situation, Jared was talking about the articulated, embraced, and lived. Had our leadership team not made a decision, or had I not backed up my assistant in that, then I'm not living those core values that were disregarded. And so, as leaderships in your organization, leaders in your organization, the core values have to be lived. They have to be articulated. They, as Jared was saying, shown in a handbook, plastered on walls, whatever it may be, embraced. Again, starting up at the top and working its way down. If the teachers, if the educators are seeing that the leaders are not embracing them, they're going to think these core values don't really matter. They're not really a core value. And again, a core value is the foundation of who you are, of what this organization is and what they believe. So, and then again, living it. In every situation, as Jared said, it's the bumpers. It helps decide every decision that has to be made, whether it's hiring, firing, or as one of our core values is integrity. Our little line below integrity is we do what's right and we're honest in every situation, no matter how difficult it is. And so that puts us in a very intentional spot of when we come into a situation, whether it's with a customer or a driver or whatever, then we have to, every decision that we make, we have to bump up against those core values. And so, and again, respect, that's another one that don't set core values if you're not going to live them. You have to be extremely intentional on this.
So if you take a minute and just, if you want to fill out, what are you doing regarding your core values currently? What are your current practices and your core values in your organization? Are you having those discussions? I don't know if anybody's had a chance. I know we keep talking and say, take a minute, and then we keep talking.
They were still writing. It's all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. You're welcome. Anybody want to share out their core values or what their organization does regarding core values? Somebody introduced me years ago to this idea of bumping up against like your core values, like your core of who you are as a person. And they told me, they said that can be a safety net, so it can be a form of comfort. So, sometimes you bump up against, or if you have a weighted blanket or you have a heavy something that you pull, like you think that's a safety piece. And it can also sometimes be a place of discomfort and a moment of growth because it hurts because you hit that really hard. And it was my best teacher, but what she did or what she's amazing here. She is amazing in the classroom but their attitude and disposition with the rest of the staff is killing the climate. It's killing the culture of the organization. And as much as it hurts to have either that hard conversation or to say goodbye, if I really believe in what I say, then I've got to do it. So it is both a sense of comfort and it can also be a sense of growth, like strengthen that core value. And I would say sometimes I see that you hit it and if you don't let it bump you back to where you need to be, then all of a sudden you get a bend in your core value. And if you look at it as this pathway that you're going on, then all of a sudden it's not okay, so the director gave a little on this one, let's see how far I can take, right? And I know that sounds like what children do, right? But it's human beings, it's human nature, it's what we all do. If we can get, this sounds very silly, but I'll never forget a time a friend and I always told her, I said, you can always get a bigger scoop of ice cream when any restaurant we go to. I said, I feel like you schmooze the waiters or waitresses in getting a bigger scoop of ice cream or better dessert or more food or something like that, right? And now I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, I don't know, but she did have free ice cream out in the lobby earlier.
She did, yeah. But sometimes, go ahead. No, because I'll come back. I'll think of it. And by you living the core value of voice, so if that is a core value of your organization, that everybody has a voice in this space, number one, it's going to get to a couple of the other items that we are going to talk about in terms of psychological safety, et cetera, et cetera. But if you are embodying that core value of voice, of people getting voice, people will follow because you are emulating what it means to have voice. Because you gave me a voice, then therefore, guess what? I'm going to give my colleague a voice. I'm going to start valuing that as an organization. So when we talk about these, the dynamic climate and culture, it truly flows from that top. And I think that's exactly right in trying to, what does make you, what gets your goat, really gets you going. I think you can look at some of those as what your core values are. Somebody else was getting ready to say something. I apologize. Yeah. And I think that's important when you look at your core values, like how often are you reviewing those core values? How often are you really thinking about that? How often do you take and I know this is something you guys do at your, is it monthly or quarterly staff meetings? They take a core value and they really, just dig into that core value of what that means. And some people would say, well, we have all of this to get done. We have CPR and first aid to complete. We have this training to complete, that training to complete. You can have all of that in place, but if your climate and culture stinks, it's what good is it, right? But if I even spend 15, 20 minutes on really reviewing, reflecting what are the core values or one of the core values of this organization, and then how am I living that out, right? And if we're not living it out, then what are we going to do next collectively as a group? And what am I think like what can you, I kind of put that in bold and underline it. So what can I do as a leader then? What can I do as a leader to?
And if your organization does not have core values, then you can put in your division or your building or your classroom or whatever, you can put your core values in there. This is our classroom. This is our division's core values, and have that with those, the colleagues that work with you and under you, and then you can, you don't have to wait on. And I think that's what's so important about this second column there is what can you do? Don't wait on your boss or those above you to do something, but you create the climate and the culture in the workspace.
And I will shamelessly support the NAEYC Code of Ethical Conduct. If you don't have any, you can go. There you go. There's your starting framework.
Yeah.
And what we do, it can run on emotions. Like I have been that director that was like, I'm not sure that this is I've not felt good about the hire, but I have 10 open spots and I'm like, okay, he or she's slightly better than a warm body. And
That's what the grace period's for.
No, exactly, right? No. Can you tell I have lived a life? I have lived the life and I know what that is. And so, but you do that. But looking back, if I would have bumped it up against and said, but Jared, does this, at the end of the day, is this going to cost me more?
Yeah.
At the end, it's going to kill my climate, kill my culture. The associate teacher or the other educator that I'm putting in the classroom with them, is it really worth it?
Yeah.
And they need more help.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So I could do a whole other session, which I have done this before on hiring for disposition. Mm-hmm. So beyond hiring for disposition. And one of the things, so we had this, and then we're going to go to the next one because we're going to run out of time. So when I was with the school district, we doubled in size. We went from 36 teachers to 60, almost 70 lead teachers. We're talking lead teachers. And then total of 121 staff. So we doubled in size. I went from 14 classrooms or 6 schools to 14 schools location. Half that number, 300 kids to 600 kids in one summer when school was off. And I had to hire 68 staff in one summer. One of the things we knew, and thank goodness this was pre-COVID, right? Mm-hmm. So this is we still were struggling hiring staff, and there was a team of 4, by the way. So think about that. I lost tons of weight. I could have fit in my suit. It was stressful time. But one of the things we knew, we were prepping for this time, and we knew that we were going to have to be moving in the hiring process. But we all emphatically said across the board, we are hiring disposition, period. Disposition is one of our things that we're looking for because a lot of skills can be trained. Mm-hmm. So I could do a whole session on disposition. So we had very specific questions we asked. We had interview processes that we did to look for disposition. And I can thankfully say, and actually I was telling one of the coaches that I worked with that was there, she's still there now. I think 90 or 95%, it's been 6 or 7 years 8 years since I worked there. 90 or 95% of those lead educators are still there today. Now, The others may not be as high numbers, but those lead educators are still there today, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else to add to that top category or anything they want to share? Okay, so for psychological safety, just did a little acronym about TRY: trust, risk, be you. So building trust within your organization, allowing risk in your organization. So if somebody has an idea, a thought that goes like, you're like, whoa, where did this come from? Like we should start a podcast, Zach.
Yeah.
We should do a podcast. And he said, for how many, like he told me for 2 years, no. I was like, we should just do it. Let's do it. Like, what do we have to lose? We have nothing.
And now I have a whole studio in my pole barn that, yeah.
And be you, authentic. Being authentic. As a leader, I'm authentic. I love this quote down here. Finding out that you are wrong is even more valuable than being right because you are learning. And that is one way of building psychological safety. So it's okay to not have the right answer or to be in growth mode and to make a mistake. And is it really a mistake if I learn and grow? And it's the response, right?
Yeah.
So take a minute on here if you want to. I'll try to zip it. Psychological safety. Is there trust? Is it okay to take risk? Is it okay to be vulnerable? Is the workplace joyful? And I know that's kind of a loaded question, but so what are you doing currently to foster psychological safety in your work environment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I believe that's in again, any organization, when the leader and the leadership team can admit mistakes and learn from them, it allows anyone and everyone to make a mistake. And then they're not afraid to admit it. They embrace it. They learn from it. It's incredible. It creates an incredible culture to be able to grow together and learn together.
We did a presentation at an early childhood conference recently, and that was one of the, I don't even remember what the topic was, but we talked about that as being a way to cultivate basically trust, is you do what you say you're going to do. And sometimes that is like I know you have your, like, you have 1,000 different pulls. Like you feel like the end of a rug, like you pull that one thing of it all, like you have 1,000 directions that you are pulled in. But if you say, I'm going to do it, but if you can't do it, and there's a reason why, you don't make excuses for why you didn't do it. He just sent me a reel this morning that was, or a little TikTok or something, I don't remember, from a video clip.
From John Maxwell, who we discussed earlier, the high road leadership. Yeah.
But basically, like when you make excuses for it, what you didn't do, that becomes the climate of the culture of your place, that we just make excuses like, well, I couldn't, or I couldn't talk to the parent because they were just in too big of a hurry and they rushed out the door, or, we get in that. Yeah. Like,
My apologies. Let that drop. I'll follow up right now.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, how many's ever been to a restaurant? And I think we talked about this at Myrtle Beach. You've been to a restaurant and you've ordered your food and you're sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and something comes out wrong or it doesn't come out and the waiter or waitress comes out and they say, I'm so sorry, or they don't even say I'm sorry. You have to, bring them over, and they say, well, the cook messed something up, and it's so easy most of the time. You can see right through it that they forgot to put something in. They failed to do something, but they're not going to take that heat. They're blaming it on the cook, someone back there. But it's so much easier to just, when you're the one sitting there in the seat, if a waitress or a waiter comes up to me and says, I am so sorry, I made a mistake, I failed to do this, it's my fault, we'll make it right. I can take that, and it's so much easier, a pill easier to swallow than it is to start blaming and making excuses. And
then you forget what your excuse was for that person, and you go to this person and they ask you, and you make a different excuse for that. But I think it goes back to what you had said earlier about the parallel for the classroom. Like, this is what we want children to feel safe in, to feel safe, like to share something that they did or didn't do, or to just be transparent about their lives, because this is our generation. They are citizens of the world right here. Like they are in our classrooms with us every day, and we look at them as, like, if I say we, but sometimes we can look at them as passive. It's a very passive classroom. Like, what we do doesn't matter, but it actually matters immensely. That's why, like I said, from the top down to the classroom, because then what that message that educator is sending that child who is going out into the world with that. I mean, these are the most formative. Look, I'm getting off because I'm very passionate about this, but okay. Anybody else want to go ahead? Wow, you guys are an amazing group. I love it. I know we're gonna get.
Yeah, we're
running
a long time.
Okay.
So, real quick, going through the psychological safety. Is there trust? We've discussed that. It's okay to take risks. We've discussed that. It's okay to be vulnerable. We've definitely discussed that. Is the workplace joyful? And I'll just share some quick stories on this. I am a jokester. I love to have fun.
And remember, he's a business person.
Yes.
He doesn't work in an educational setting. So some of the stuff that
some
they
of the
do
things
for
that I
joyful
say,
may
you
not
probably
fly enough.
you probably can't take back. But so I will just say that all of my office staff has a Nerf gun in their desk. And at any point in time, there could be a Nerf war that breaks out in the office, along with what are those? The things that you told Eva to buy and get me with.
The silly string, or the
you
glitter
twist them and they
poppers.
blow everywhere.
Yeah, the confetti poppers.
bombs,
Yeah.
yes. So we make sure, again, going back to one of the first slides, 90,000 hours is the average that you spend at a workplace. Make it fun. Make it fun for the kids. Make it entertaining. Make it fun for the educators. Just make it fun and make it relaxing as much as you can in this realm, in this field. I love the Miss Phyllis, what you were saying about people coming in and checking in on you or asking for prayer. And actually, a funny story on that. I had a driver a few weeks ago was injured pretty bad. He was in the hospital, and I was in there, and I went in there and I prayed with him, and his wife was there, and so anyway, spent quite a bit of time in there. When I was leaving, he said, "Zach, I love you," and his wife laughed because she just didn't know the culture we had, and I said, "I love you too," and so it's just funny having that family feel and having that joy in the workplace. Again, which if you have to be there, make it fun.
Yeah, I know it's a well quoted statement or comment, and I think it's a little bit has been slightly altered over time. But if you're familiar with the Reggio approach, nothing without joy, right? So nothing without joy. So our place, our work environment, nothing without joy. And because it is hard, that climate and culture, when the outside environment can press in so hard, and sometimes you're just like, is it worth it? Like, is this, like, you feel like it's sometimes in a battle, like that you're in this struggle, but you realize, like, I'm not going to give up this work because this is what I'm passionate about. I don't know what else to do. I think it was you, I told somebody else, I said, I have got every degree that I have, every certification I have is somehow connected to either adult education or young children. Like, everything is connected. I don't know anything else. So what else am I going to go back to doing? But this is my field, and I'm passionate about it. And so if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it with joy. Like, I don't want to be in the molly grubs about it. So leading with, as a director, you lead, and that's what you want your classrooms to be, right? Once again, you want those to be spaces of joy. Nothing we do should be without joy.
Yep.
Okay.
I switched on you already.
Okay. You're keeping me going because we're
running low on time. 10 minutes.
Okay, so recognition. This actually goes to something someone was just saying, and I had created a thread and I forgot it. So looking at recognition on your sheet. So what does recognition look like in your environment? And I'm going to share a pet peeve of mine. And maybe I shouldn't because of my role, but just act like I don't work for NACI or anything like that. But one of the things is you hear a lot of good job, good job, good job, good job, good job. That's not recognition, right? Mm-hmm. That is not recognizing somebody, just saying good job over and over and over and over, right? So what is recognition? What does that look like in your space, in your work environment? How do we recognize people for what they're doing, for the gifts and the talents that they bring to your space? Because everybody has gifts. It's our job to recognize their gift. It's that they shouldn't have to be trying to throw their gift at you all the time, trying to show like, here's my gift, I have a gift. Can you see my gift? Like everybody has a gift, and how do we recognize those gifts? How do we recognize those gifts as a collective, like as an organization together, like the work that we do? When I first started working with CTAEYC, and it was like my third or fourth visit with accreditation. I was an assessor, and I went to a location, and they had worked so hard. I mean, the teachers were even telling me how hard they worked, and I could tell, like you could tell, they had worked very hard. And at the end of the day, they're like, we want you to have pictures with everybody in this place because they have worked so hard. I was like, okay, I think we're breaking like some rules and violating rules. Like, I don't know what we're doing. But they were very proud, and they wanted to recognize, they said, because we are going to have a celebration of the hard work that they have done with accreditation, because they've been going through the process in a month. So they were recognizing the collective group of educators who had worked so hard for accreditation. So I think recognizing collectively, but then it's also, I think this is the key piece, it's authentic.
We have 1 minute. Okay.
Okay. Oh my.
Okay. Communication.
One of the most important, but save for last.
Communication. Okay. Thank you all.
Okay. You want to?
No, I'll just start. But I've, and my wife gets on to me so much because I always talk about communication. Like communication, we have to have communication, and I love this first aspect of communication, mitigates conflict. If there's communication, it can solve many issues, and just disintegrate them before they even become anything. And so that's. Anyway, yes, go ahead. We're out of time. So
So communication mitigates conflict. It increases employee engagement, creates better client-family relationships. So the more you communicate, how often. So just ask yourself, what does communication look like? What is the frequency of that? Is it consistent? Is it inconsistent, right? Because that's the key. I'll never forget getting feedback as a director. Like, Jared, we really like, it was like a newsletter type thing, but you're very inconsistent with getting it out. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I'm sending a message to my families that like, this is not important. And they really enjoy it. And I just sent them a message through my communication that sharing their child's information, sharing this information is not important. I was like, ooh, need to learn about that. Take note there. Creates more productive and talented workforce. So the more we communicate with each other, obviously the more productive we're going to be. Teams that practice open communication are 3 times more likely to feel engaged at work. And one thing that I said was talking to Zach when I read this. So open communication, one of the things I thought about was oftentimes we have a top-down model, or we create channels and layers within our organization. Like, I have to go to you first, then you go to this person, then you go to this person. And we create all of these barriers when I could have just, why can't I just go to this person and ask them if I need it? So like thinking through your system of what systems you have in place within your organization, like, are these systems that really, quote unquote, might look good, right? And from an outsider's perspective, sound good, but are they really creating barriers for how we communicate amongst each other and to get our work done effectively?
And I think communication goes hand in hand with recognition as well. When you're communicating, it's also the I see you moments, and the rather than just assuming everyone and putting everyone on their own island, you're communicating, you're bringing in the unity and the recognition.
Yep. Okay, time's up.
So sorry, everyone. Thank you.